Good morning, church. How we doing? Apparently, they didn't want to hang out with me on stage. It's fine. It's fine. I'm kidding. That would be so awkward for them. Welcome to the Well. My name is Philip. I am a guest speaker, but not really. I've been coming here for 2 years, a few times a year, and it is my honor and privilege. I want to give a special shout out to Pastor Seth. I have the privilege of being an outside ear that knows you guys, and so I hear his heart and like his care for you guys. This isn't a job, this is a calling, and so when he invites me here, I take it very seriously, and I just want to thank him for the opportunity, and I want to thank you guys for your hospitality. Every time I'm here, I feel like I'm at home, and I just love that, so thank you so much. Today we are continuing on, okay, that works too. Today we are continuing on in the series you guys have been in called Learning to Breathe. It's about spiritual symmetry. We're covering those things where, they kind of feel like there's a tension, they're different, they're opposites, but in reality, it's just what it means to be part of the family of God, what it means to be the church. It's this holistic Christian experience where sometimes there's seasons that they like I said, they seem like they're opposites, but they're not. But today we are talking about the idea of serving and being served. Serving and being served. We're going to do that by looking at John chapter 13. If you have a Bible, go ahead and flip over or click over to John chapter 13. If you don't have a Bible, you could head out those doors and they will give you one. I hear they're for free. And if not, just say you'll pay them after service and run. Just so fast. I don't care. I don't work here. But as you turn there, I want to start with a question. How many of you struggle to ask for help? How many of you just like struggle? I was going to make that rhetorical, but some people raise their hand. I love that. I am one of those people. I just like, there's something in me. We'll cover what it is. It's pride. But there's something in me that doesn't want to bother people, that doesn't want to ask for help, that doesn't want to be a burden. And sometimes, I allow that to go too far. I'll give you a quick example. My kids, they share a birthday. They're 3 years apart, but they share a birthday. So grandparents have a cheat code, and that cheat code is one big gift, right? Which is fine because, it's not my birthday. So no big gifts for me and my wife. I want my own gifts, But they have combined gifts, and my dad called me a couple years back and said, hey, want to do a big gift for the kids. What do they need? And we had been walking around Costco, and my daughter had pointed out like one of those big playhouses and was like, I want one of those. And so I just put that in the back of my head. And then when my dad asked, I proposed this idea. I was like, I'll split it with you. He's like, don't worry, I'll get it. And I was like, thank you. I did not want to split it with him. So I go buy one. Now, I don't know if you've ever bought large things from Costco. But they come in boxes, not already built. I was like, why are you not coming to my house with me, sir? And they're like, please leave. They're checking my receipt, and they just let me go. And so I get it home, I put it in my garage, and there it sits for months. 6 months, turns into 7 months, turns into 8 months. Don't judge me. We're pushing 9 months, and I'm telling you, probably 2 to 3 times a week, my kids are like, when are we building the playhouse? I was like, someday soon. Here's the deal. I didn't build it because I knew I could not build it on my own. I can't move the stuff on my own. I can't build it on my own. Even the box says 2 to 4 people, and I know that's usually a suggestion, but in this case, it was a requirement. And it just sat in my garage because I didn't want to ask anyone for help. I didn't want to bother anyone. It's my kid's playhouse. I should be able to do it, but I can't. But I'm not going to bother anybody. And it actually might have never been built had I not said this in a sermon at the church I was working at. And a guy came up to me afterwards, and he was like, hey, take a day off this week. We're building that playhouse. And I said, sorry, okay, I will. And I was not helpful. I was not helpful. I don't know if you could tell. I'm not very helpful when it comes to building things. But here's the deal. It sat in my garage despite my kids complaining because I hate asking for help. That's all it was. In my pride, I did not want to ask for help. And what we're going to see today as we think about the idea of serving and being served is simply this. This is our main idea for the day. Christian community is built by humble service and humble receiving. Usually we're good with the first half of that. We're like, yeah, I'll serve other people. And then it's like humbly receiving, and we're like, I don't know about that part. Like, that part's not for me. But humble people, they serve, and they let others serve them. And we're going to see that through the lens of John chapter 13. In John chapter 13, what we're going to see here at the beginning is that Jesus is the one who sets the tone of service. Jesus models humble service. Here we go, John chapter 13, starting in verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. So we have some context from another passage about what is going on here, but let me just give you a little picture. At the end of all the Gospels, we hear about this thing called the Last Supper. It's a famous painting, but it's also a real thing that happened. And so the context of this story is very simple. Jesus has done all the Jesus things. He's done the miracles. He's raised people from the dead just before this, right? He's done the Sermon on the Mount. He's done all the things that we know Jesus for, right? And so he's at the end of his time with his disciples. And so they book, looking forward to Passover, which is a big festival in the Jewish community. They book an upper room, and they're just going to have an intimate meal together, right? And we know from Luke chapter 22 that the thing that's happening right before this meal is the disciples are having a little debate. And the debate is about who among them, among the disciples, is the greatest. Isn't that like so outrageous that they're hanging with Jesus, like the creator of the world, and they're like, no, I'm better. No, me. Like that's who they are, right? And they're arguing about this, and that is the context of what is happening. That's setting the stage for what Jesus does, right? And so we read that he gets down and he takes off his outer cloak and he puts a towel on and he washes their feet. Why is that necessary? Let me tell you. So in first century Judea, we could just say it was really dirty. No pavement. They're walking in dirt, right? And so in the best weather conditions, in dry conditions, they're walking in a couple inches of dirt, so they're dusty all over the place. Have you ever been camping and just looked at your like feet and legs? You're like, ew, gross, right? Because it's like built up, thick, and they're walking in sandals. And in the worst of time, they're walking around and there's mud from the rain, and it's just thick, gross ground. And that's not to mention their main form of transportations were animals who had waste, right? So there's a lot going on of why they would need to wash their feet. It's gross there. Moral of the story, it's gross. And so because it was gross there, it was customary that when you entered a home of a wealthy person, a slave or servant would be at the door to wash your feet. And if you entered the home of someone who wasn't wealthy, a water basin and everything you need to wash feet would be at the door. Why? Because you don't track that stuff in. How many of you take off your shoes when you enter your house? My wife shames me because sometimes I forget, and she's like, you know, you walk into bathrooms, and then you walk around, and then you walk in here. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. And she was like, you're disgusting. And I'm like, yeah, moral of the story is I'm bad at that. But here's the point. Just like you would take off your shoes if that's what people did, in that culture, you would wash your feet. That's just what you did then. So I want us to picture the scene the disciples walk into. They've booked this upper room of this household, and they've asked for privacy. So when they walk in, there's no servant to wash their feet, but there's a basin. And as each disciple walks through the door, they notice the basin. They know this drill. It's like natural. It's what you do, right? And so they notice it, and they have to make a decision. Am I going to wash my feet? Because if I do, there's a chance I get caught washing everybody else's feet. And in the mind of the disciples who have just debated which of them is the greatest, they don't want to be caught washing the feet of everyone. This is the context that they walk in with. There's this awkward debate. They don't want to be caught being the foot servant. To them, they see it as beneath them. To them, they see it as shameful. But then Jesus walks in and sets the tone for what it means to serve others. The Bible is very intentional. John here is very intentional to write Jesus' mindset, where he says he realizes that he's come from God. He realizes that God has given him all authority on earth. And with all authority being sent from God, he makes a decision. And that decision is to get low and to wash their feet. Now, here's the reality. The disciples would have happily washed Jesus' feet. In that culture, you wash the feet of those who are above you. But no one on your level, no one beneath you. Jesus, their rabbi, their teacher, he gets down and washes feet. And notice what John also gives us. He gives us a little context into who's in the room. Yes, it's the disciples, but he makes a note that Judas has already made a decision to betray Jesus. Judas is in the room, and Jesus gets down and washes his feet too. This is the God we serve. We serve a God who is driven not by power, not by prestige, not by authority, but by humility. The one with all authority chooses the lowest position in the room. So Jesus sets the tone. Jesus doesn't expect us to know on our own, like in our own intelligence that we think we have, how to serve others. He's going to show us. He doesn't want you to guess. Jesus, what I love about the Bible is it doesn't force you to guess what God is interested in. If you read the Gospels, you read the story of Jesus, Jesus isn't going around being like, can anyone serve me? I need some more water. Please, this bores me. Do something better. Like Jesus doesn't act that way. Instead, he is served. And the problem is, in relationships with others, we don't struggle because we're too much like Jesus. We struggle because we're too much like the disciples. And we're willing to walk past it if it means we don't feel the shame. But as he's washing their feet, you know what they're feeling. And what I love about the Bible is it records some actual human interactions with Jesus, and one of those is from Peter. Continuing on, we read this. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Like, what a dumb question. He's like watching them. He's like, oh, were you planning on washing my feet as well, sir? Like, why is he asking? It's going to happen. But here's the deal. We struggle to humbly receive. Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. I just love it when Peter says no to the Savior of the world. Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Jesus answered, those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you. For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not every one of you was clean. And we love to look at scriptures with what C.S. Lewis calls modern snobbery, where we read back the stories of humans and we go, how stupid are they? I would never do that. But again, we are more like Peter than we think. And sometimes it's just about being served. And it's generally not about feet washing. But it can be. So a couple months ago, I was at a conference. This is important to the story. The layout of the conference was tables, not rows. So I was sitting about where you're sitting, sir. And I'm like way up in the front, not by choice. It was assigned seating. And we're sitting at this conference, and if you've never been to a Christian conference, they want it to be different and unique and special, so that sometimes they do things to get you out of your comfort zone. And this particular conference decided, we're going to do feet washing. Now, you don't know this about me yet, but let me tell you a little something. Feet are disgusting. I think my feet are disgusting. I think your feet are disgusting. I don't want you touching my feet. I sure as heck, I promise you I won't touch your feet. Feet are gross. So when they say feet washing, I'm like, nah, not today. I don't care how Christian you have to be to do this. Apparently, I didn't hit that mark. I went to a Christian high school, though. I know the system. I know the rules. I know how to get out of this. So we're sitting at these tables, and they're giving us the instructions, and I'm planning my escape route. I'm like, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look like I'm praying. The first song's going to start, and I'm just going to run to the bathroom and hide in the lobby till this is over. I'm ready. The instructions are happening. I'm sitting at my table. I can't see anyone because I'm in the very front. I can't see anyone else at my table, but I just know I'm gone. And they start the first song, and I'm about to leave, and I feel a hand on my shoulder. And a gentleman's like, Philip, I would love to wash your feet. Don't get ahead of me. And I said no, and I left. No, I'm kidding. That'd be crazy. That would be so crazy for me to tell you that story. If I did that, I wouldn't say anything. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, man, my plan was so good. I was so gone. And against my better judgment, in my head, I say, okay. And we walk over, and he's washing my feet, and I'm just like so uncomfortable. I would love to tell you that I saw Jesus there, and he was like, great job. That didn't happen. I was uncomfortable. I didn't like it. I didn't want this to be happening. But I felt convicted too, right? And so he gets done, and I go, I'd like to wash your feet too. And he's prayed over me, and I've prayed over him, and we do this thing. And I realized the only thing keeping me from this moment was my own discomfort. See, we struggle like Peter too. Why do we resist being served? It's because maybe we're uncomfortable, right? Maybe in our own discomfort, we're like, I just don't like this feeling. Maybe it's our pride where we just don't want to admit we need help. Probably no one in the room, but that can happen for some people, I've heard. Maybe it's our control. We want to be the one serving because when it's taken out of our hands, we don't like that. Maybe it's our image. We don't want to be seen as needy. But whatever the reason is, we, in our humanity, we struggle to be served. But the truth of the matter is that humility requires us to not just serve others, but to be served as well. Oftentimes, we're so willing to serve others, like we are okay with it. But then when others need to serve us, we do this fake humility thing. We're like, oh, I could never. But that's just pride dressed up, making us feel better. We just want to act like we are, oh, I would never want to receive. But the reality is, when we choose not to receive, we're keeping people from serving. And we don't like that part. We're like, Philip, take that part back. I don't want to hear that. But that's the truth. And I think that the ultimate issue isn't that what they're serving us isn't the problem. I think the problem is we don't like to need. Just in general, we don't like to need. And we will resist needing in relationships with others. We will resist needing spiritually. We will resist needing emotionally. Everything we can do to be self-sufficient, our world has oriented our heads to that, to be the most self-sufficient, to be the least burden on others. That's what we want to do. But that's not how it works with Jesus. Sharon Hode Miller, she says, need is the currency of the kingdom, because the kingdom of heaven is built on your need and my need. I'll prove it to you. We can't get back to God on our own. We have broken relationship with God by the decisions we make, by the sin we commit, or the things we don't do that we're supposed to do. And in our brokenness, God's over there, we're over here, and we can't build that bridge back. In our guilt, we are broken from God. In our shame, the shame of our sin makes us look away from God. And we see God not as a personal God, but a God worth fearing. And because of that need, in steps Jesus. This is the gospel. The word gospel means good news. The good news is that Jesus saw your need and said, I'll do something about that. I'll bridge that gap so when you stand before God, you're not afraid, but you stand there innocence, in honor, in dignity, not in shame. This is the gospel. So if you want to walk around saying, I don't need anything, you have to remember that in order to say yes to Jesus, you have to say no to your own pride of not wanting to need. That is what this whole thing is built on. We are supposed to serve others and be served. And by choosing to not be served, like I said, you are choosing to refuse others an opportunity to serve God by caring for you. It's just the truth. Being served is how God meets your need with his provision. It's how God meets your need with his provision. When I think of this with my kids. So 8 years ago, my daughter was born, and I don't know, parents, if you remember your first baby, but I'm at the hospital, I'm trying to bargain with staying longer. I'm like, you're gonna send me home with a human child? No, I'm gonna pretend something's wrong or something. I need to stay here. You're just gonna send me home? You haven't even checked my house. You haven't even checked if I have plug covers. You're just gonna let me go, right? It's scary. And you don't know what you don't know. And so we walk home, or we don't walk home, we drive home. That would be crazier. I'd be like, dude, maybe we should keep them. We go home and we just have a less than 2-day-old baby, and we're like, what do we do? She won't eat. She won't sleep. She doesn't care about us. She hates us. That's why she's doing this to us, right? We were way in over our heads. And nobody wants to be like forcing themselves into your life, so they let you set the tone. And so when our son was going to be born, we did the opposite. I was lining people up for months to come stay for a week. I was like, hey, Mom, do you want to quit your job and come care for our baby full time? She said no, but she did come for a while. And here's the point. I just realized how in over my head I was, how much I needed help. So now I use that experience to try to care for others in a small way. If we have people over to our house, or if we go over to someone's house and they have a baby, I will hold their baby while they eat. It's a simple thing, but here's why. I remember trying to hold a baby and eating, and it's just awkward. It's not impossible. You get pretty good at eating one-handed, but how much better to not have to? And I don't offer to take their baby because they're inept, they're incapable, they can't do it. I'm not doing it and feeling like they're a burden on me. I'm doing it because I care. And that's all it is. I just want to give them 10 minutes of eating in peace like an adult. That's all. And the truth of the matter is, so often when others want to serve us, we feel like they see something in us that's lacking, when in reality, they see us and love us enough to want to help. And that's the perspective. Because the Bible tells us in Galatians 6:2 that we are supposed to carry each other's burdens, and in this way we fulfill the law of Christ. So if we want others to be able to do what God's calling them to do, we have to let them. If I'm carrying a burden and you offer to help, but I don't give it up, you can't help me, right? It's that simple. And like Jesus told Peter, to be served is to be part of the family of God. And when you refuse to be served, you keep others from living out their purpose, what God has called them to do. But Jesus doesn't ask us just to be served for the sake of being served. He doesn't say like, hey, let people wait on you hand and foot. But there's a purpose. It's because humble receiving produces in us humble service of others. Verse 12, when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? I love this because as he's washing their feet, they're probably, after Peter, silent. And he goes and he puts his cloak back on and they haven't said a word. And he looks at him and he's like, do you get it? And the answer is probably no, but the Bible doesn't record any responses. And he says this, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Being served transforms us into people who serve others. When we have received, we know what to reflect, right? You can't just figure it out on our own. In our own wisdom, we're not so smart that we're like, I understand how to help everyone do their thing. No, you have to receive first. Are you guys familiar with Celebrate Recovery? It's true of that. It's true of AA and other STEP programs. But the whole point of those programs is that the leaders and the sponsors aren't random people who have no experience in that sector. The whole point is it's people who are a little bit farther along the journey that come alongside people and walk them through it, not because they're like, I have something to offer you, but because they realize how hard it is to be at step one, how hard it is to do the right thing. And so they walk alongside. They're not claiming perfection. They're simply saying, I want to be with you in this, because you cannot give what you haven't been given. And in our humility, we have to recognize I've been given something and I'm going to give back because I've been given, not because I have something to offer. It's that simple. That's what this is all about, because we reflect Jesus' humility in our service. Again, Jesus flipped the social norm. People of that time would have been fine washing the feet of their leaders. They would have been fine washing the feet of those above them. They would not be okay with washing their peers or people beneath them in the culture. Yet Jesus, he flips that, because rabbis don't serve their followers and lords don't serve their subjects. But Jesus doesn't operate that way. Jesus called them together. Mark 10 says, and said, "You know that those regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The leaders of that day, they exercised their authority. And Jesus, he emptied himself of his authority. What kind of boss do you like to work for? The one that tells you over and over and over and over how they're your boss and they can fire you? Or do you prefer to work for someone who seems to actually care, asks what you need help with, things like that? I think we all know the answer, right? And that is what Jesus is saying. We're not going to be people in the kingdom of God who lord over our position over people. That's not what this is about. That doesn't work. Because if we're called to serve, and we are, by the way, if we're called to serve, we are not serving out of our own ability, we're not serving out of our own wisdom, and we're not serving to earn any favor with God or others. We are simply serving because we are people who have been served by Jesus. That's what this is all about. Galatians 5, verses 13 and 14 says this: "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself." What makes the service of others fit into the kingdom of heaven is because it's based on your freedom, not your obligation. The Bible's clear. You have the choice not to serve others. But because of that choice, when we do it, isn't that a little bit more impactful? Because we've chosen to, right? The people who serve here on a Sunday, they don't do it because they're like, "Oh, I got to check a box to be a good member of the well." They don't do it because they're like, "I want people to see me so I can be great." They do it because they care. And they say, "God has served me, others have served me, now it's my turn to serve them." The question I would pose to you is this: do you serve because you're afraid of what happens if you don't, or because you've been so loved that you can't help it? That's what this is all about. Let's return to the room for a second. The disciples, they walk through the threshold and they see this basin and they go, "Not today. I'm not going to be the foot servant." They walk past, each and every one of them. Walk past. They see that and they go, "That's beneath me. That's shameful." And Jesus, the rabbi, the Lord, the creator of the universe, sees it and goes, "I see no shame there, but I'm going to do it." Now, leaders of that time would have looked at Jesus' choice to say, "Hey, even your disciples avoided the lowest position. Maybe you should too." Force one of them to do it. But Jesus says, "Hey, that's not even as shameful as I'm willing to go for these people." Because washing feet isn't the most shame-filled thing he'll do. He continues on and he goes to the cross. See, what made the cross a punishment in the Roman Empire is the death part, but also the public shaming part. They put you on a cross, put your crime above you, and force everyone as they walk by to look at you. And they said, it was basically a big sign that said, "Hey, if you disobey us, if you go against us, if you rebel, this will be your outcome." And yes, there's suffering. And yes, there's death, but there's also shame. And Jesus, just like at the basin, goes, "I'm not afraid of a little shame for these people." Hebrews 12:2, when talking about our faith, says this: "With our faith, we look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God." When he thought about the shame of the cross, when he thought about the cross, when it came to meeting our need, the Bible describes his approach to the cross as he did it with joy, and he didn't care about the shame. That's the God we serve. And he didn't do that so that a couple thousand years later, I would come here and be like, "Look how great God is." He did it because he legitimately cares for you here and now. Friend, let me tell you, Jesus died for you. You have a need. Whether you've accepted Jesus as your Savior or you haven't, whether you're just here for the first time checking out what this whole church thing is about, or you've been going to church for 40 years, it does not matter. You had a need. And your need was to get back over to God. And Jesus steps into that and he says, "I got it. I'll meet that need. I don't care that it's shameful. I don't care that people will look at this and go, how could he do that? Jesus never cared about what people were thinking. He only cared about caring for those around him. Because of his love for you, he went to the cross. And you can say yes to him today, here. It doesn't take a big thing. It doesn't take this magical formula. It's basically, the Bible tells us, you just say yes to Jesus. You say, I believe you died and I want to make you my Lord. And it starts your relationship with him just like that. That's the beauty of the gospel. The gospel's good news because you're not having to earn it. Because that would be real bad news because we cannot. That's the gospel. The Son of God will get low for you and for me. And we reflect that in how we live in relationship with one another because Christian community is built by humble service and humble receiving. I want to ask you a couple quick questions to reflect on this week. Number one, what is keeping me from allowing myself to be served? Why won't you let others serve you? What is it? Is it pride? Is it control? Is it your image? Is it your discomfort? Is it something else? Only you can answer that question. Number two, who is God calling me to serve this week? Listen, if God is calling us to serve, and the Bible's pretty clear about that, we shouldn't put it off, right? Like sometimes we do that with service. We're like, God, I will serve you. Give me a few years. I'll get free in a few years. I'm a little busy right now. But God is calling you to serve here and now. I have some practical next steps for you. And you know where you're at with God. This will be the Holy Spirit walking into this relationship with you, telling you what to do. I'm not the Holy Spirit. I'm just giving you some ideas. Maybe your first next step is this, to pray for the humility that Jesus modeled. And I would encourage you to be specific. Don't just pray, Jesus, make me humble. Maybe it's, hey, Jesus, with that friend group, help me to know what it looks like to serve. Hey, at my workplace, help me to model humility for others. Whatever the case may be, pray for the humility that Jesus modeled, because that's where service starts. Number two, allow yourself to be served. This is hard, but we have to be willing to accept our first of all, accept our state of need and allow others to step in. Here's just a couple quick things that you could do today to accept need. Maybe you're in a position where, I don't know, maybe because of medical issues or other issues, you just kind of need some help. I would encourage you to talk to the team here, Pastor Seth or Pastor Kevin or Pastor Luke or anybody that's out the info desk out there, because there's a whole team, it's called the Well Care Team, I don't know if you know this, that wants to help you. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. Why would these people want to help you? Because they care about you. It's that simple. So let others help you. Maybe it's just like there's spiritually something you need, but you don't really want to take it to God along with others, right? There's a prayer team that is up here every single week after the service. Allow them to pray for you. That is a form of service. These people are not here because they're the best prayers in the room. Maybe they are, right? I don't know. But they're here because they care for you and they want to be a resource for you. Allow yourself to be served. Allow yourself to be prayed for. Number three is simply serve others. This is one of those things, right? Like not everyone is called to be a pastor. Not everyone is called to ministry, but everyone is called to serve others. That is a universal call on all of our lives, not because we have some great thing to offer, but simply because, once again, we care for others. You could do that by volunteering your time, treasure, and talent here at the church. You could do it in the community. I know your church partners with organizations like World Relief and Youth for Christ. And when I grow up, there's opportunities there to serve in your community. There's also opportunities to serve here. Let me give you the most practical one. This is a church ministry nerd thing. Do you know maybe the most important position of service in a church? It's not this. It's the greeters and the ushers in the front. Why? Because a church experience for a new, first-time guest does not start right here. It starts in the parking lot. And maybe you're like, hey, I can't do that. I'm introverted. I promise you can wave and say hi and then panic when they walk away. You got it. You can do that. A smile and a hello, how you doing? Somebody that they can ask questions to, be pointed in the right direction. It goes way beyond what you would think. You can do that. Yes, you. Whoever you are, I don't mean to point to anyone. But you can do it. Just say yes. Just say yes. Give of your resources to causes that matter to you. Advocate for those you care about. Serve other people. Why? Because you have been served by others. You have been served by God. And it's our turn to turn that around. Because Christ has served us, we become people who serve and who are humble enough to be served by others. Can I pray? God, break down our pride today. Help us not to be people who walk in here pretending everything's good when it's not. Help us not to be people who walk in here thinking we have it all together and making everyone else think the same thing. But God, help us to be people who are willing to be served by others, who are humble enough to say yes. And God, help us to take that service and be humble enough to turn it around and serve others. Not because we're earning your favor, your attention, wanting to feel important, but God, simply because we care for people and we want to show it through how we act. God, thank you for sending Jesus. Thank you for being in the room with us, as close to us as the air we're breathing. God, I pray that you would speak to each heart in a unique way that isn't Philip, that isn't the band, that isn't anything other than you speaking to their heart. God, we love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.